What if the whole idea of the end of the world wasn't an end at all, but a beginning? That's what we're diving into today. We're looking at a pretty radical reinterpretation of Al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection. And this idea, it pulls it right out of the distant future and puts it square inside of you, right here and now. So let's get into it.
So let's just start with that big provocative question right off the bat. What if this whole day of judgment thing isn't about the world coming to a fiery end, but about you starting over with a totally new kind of self-awareness? That's the core idea we're going to be unpacking today.
Now, most of us, right, we have this picture in our heads, a single, massive, epic day way off in the future, where every single person who ever lived is brought forward for a final judgment. It's a huge part of how many traditions think about the end times.
But the instructor we're drawing from for this explainer, Benjamin Bilal, he just completely challenges that entire view. He basically argues that this common interpretation totally misses the point. It takes what should be a powerful, personal tool for your own growth and turns it into just another old story, a distant fable that doesn't really affect us today.
Okay, so this brings us to the first really big shift in perspective. It's about learning to see Scripture not as a history book, but more like a mirror that reflects the entire landscape of what's going on inside our own minds. So the really crucial shift here is to stop seeing figures like Muhammad or Pharaoh as just these one-off historical people. Instead, think of them as prototypes, right? They're symbols for different personality types. The noble side of us, the tyrannical side, the praised one, the arrogant one. All of these are potentials that exist inside every single one of us.
And to make this even clearer, the source goes a step further. He argues these aren't even proper names at all. They're more like job descriptions. Pharaoh isn't just some king from ancient Egypt. It's the title for that arrogant, tyrannical part of your own self. And Muhammad, which actually means the praised one, well, that's the title for your highest, most noble potential. It's a state of being, not just a name.
So when you start reading Scripture this way, everything changes. It's not just ancient history anymore. It kind of becomes like a user's manual for your own mind, speaking directly to you. Take a figure like Abu Lahab, for example. His name literally means father of flame. So he's not just some guy from the past. He becomes a powerful symbol for our own fiery, destructive anger.
All right, but this idea of Scripture being a psychological manual, it actually goes even deeper. It's not just about seeing the characters differently. It's about unlocking a whole new layer of meaning that's supposedly hidden in the original Arabic words themselves.
So let's start with the big one, the central term, Al-Qiyamah. Forget a physical resurrection of bodies from the grave. This perspective redefines it as an intellectual and moral resurrection. It's that moment when your thinking gets a serious upgrade, when you finally stand up to a higher level of consciousness.
And what about the messenger, the Rasul? Well, in this view, it's not some person who comes from the outside. No, it's an internal faculty. The Rasul is that voice of pure, clear, undeniable common sense that's already inside you. It's your built-in guidance system that you're supposed to be listening to.
This way of thinking also applies to the word ayat, which we usually translate as verses. But here, they aren't just stories about the past or signs pointing to the future. They are instructing signs. Think of them as tools, as knowledge that's meant to be applied immediately to whatever situation you're facing right now. So, okay, we've got this new vocabulary, this new way of looking at things. So how does it all come together? Well, this is where we connect the dots and see what your own personal day of standing really looks like.
And this is where the core idea really clicks into place. Al-Qiyamah isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous, moment-to-moment process of checking in with yourself, of taking account. Every single time you stop, reflect on what you're doing, and choose a better way, you're actually experiencing a mini resurrection. That's your personal day of standing.
And the source we're looking at uses a really great modern analogy to make this super tangible. Think about it like upgrading your internet service. You go from that slow, clunky connection to super fast fiber optic. All of a sudden, everything just runs faster, smoother, way more efficiently. Well, this resurrection is just like that. It's an upgrade to your moral and rational operating system.
So what does this process actually look like in practice? Well, it starts when you just ponder. You observe yourself without judgment. Then you start to evaluate your own thoughts and actions.
You begin to connect those actions to their consequences, right? Their karma. And it's through that brutally honest self-accounting that you achieve the upgrade. You literally become a more conscious, awake version of yourself.
And you know, this also perfectly explains why judgment is always described as a totally individual thing. Of course, no one else can stand with you, because this whole event isn't happening in some giant cosmic courtroom in the sky. It's happening inside your own consciousness, at the exact moment when you, and only you, are finally ready to face yourself and stand up.
But wait a second. If this resurrection is this internal awakening that we should all be working towards, that implies there's got to be an opposite, right? A state we really need to avoid. And that brings us to a really powerful final question. What is the true apocalypse that we should actually be worried about? And honestly, this quote from the source it's pretty chilling. The real threat isn't your body being destroyed, it's a spiritual death. He argues that modern society doesn't want to kill you off. Heck no, it needs your body. It needs you to be a consumer, a worker, a little cog in the machine. What it really wants to eliminate is your soul.
So from this perspective, the real end of the world is a societal collapse. It happens when a people's standards, their moral compass, their ethical foundations just crumble away. It's when people get desensitized, when that soulful quality just diminishes and they're not really standing for anything meaningful anymore. That is the great elimination.
And so that leaves us with one last thing to really think about. Is the end of the world some big external event that we're supposed to just passively fear? Or is it an internal state, something to be overcome? And is the resurrection something we're just supposed to wait for? Or is it something we have to actively achieve, moment by moment inside ourselves? Food for thought.